Hello everybody out there watching on YouTube, and welcome to the 23rd race of Season 7 of the NNSCRA Marvel Studios Cup Series. I am Levi McIntyre, the voice of the NNSCRA Marvel Studios Cup Series, here to welcome you to the New England 400 here at Boston International Speedway, a brand new track to the Marvel Studios Cup Series circuit. Now, starting from here on out, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently as far as the presentation of the races. Instead of doing the lineup and the recap of the points right at this point, you'll see the recap of the points and the lineup at the very beginning of the races from now on. So that way it makes it a little easier for me to edit these videos for you guys and to make them a little more condensed and compact. So, with that being said, Matt McIntyre is on the pole with Artur Castanha starting right next to him. Let's get the command to fire engines for the New England 400 at Boston.
Drivers, start your engines!
So yes, Boston International Speedway. This track is 1.09 miles in length, so this is a little over a mile-long racetrack. Now, the actual racing, I have not done any tests. I have seen races done at this track in other series, and from what I've seen, it can get really, really interesting. So I'm going to be curious to see how this race is going to go here this time around, because we might come back to this track in Season 8. Pace car into pit road. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to boogity 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 go racing. Matt McIntyre using the outside line off of turn 4 to lead that lap, as Jay Jefferson coming underneath to try and take the lead away. Johnny Gardner going to try and follow suit. And it looks like, yeah, the outside lane in 3 and 4 is where you want to be. The bottom lane in 1 and 2 is where you want to be. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how drivers are going to transition between both lines, because right there I just saw Cole Baker make a pass on the bottom underneath of Melissa Alexander, but when you're running the top side, you're able to carry off more speed off the corner and keep the positions that you're running on. As I just seen right there, Melissa Alexander trying to do the same thing on Joshua Sekuli. Battle on for the lead once again, as Jay Jefferson this time waited until he got to turn 1 to make the pass, and he clears Matt McIntyre. So Jay Jefferson now to the race lead. And Jay Jefferson comes into this race 7th in points, as ever since he moved to the number 5 car, he has had a renaissance season. Even though he's not been in the hunt for the points lead all season, he's been very, very close. Perhaps this could be the season where he wins the championship, because next season he's going to return to the 87 for Kamikaze Racing. Maybe he can carry over the success of this season over to Season 8. Meanwhile, the battle continues to rage on, as Matt McIntyre trying to take the lead back. And Johnny Gardner, who is in 3rd right now, he's just kind of laying back and just watching these two go at it, and maybe he might make a 3-wide pass for the lead at some point. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if he can actually pull that off, as Jay Jefferson using the outside line to keep the spot for the time being. But as a result of all this, we got more drivers starting to sneak their way up here into this battle for the lead. Cole Baker, who is in 4th, and I believe he and Kyle Matthews, or actually I think Kyle did get a top 5 at Twin Ring Motegi last week, or I might be wrong. Sorry for the freeze, I was just double checking. And Kyle Matthews and Cole Baker are the only drivers to have yet to score a single top 5 finish. And Cole Baker would definitely love to break that streak of not having a top 5, as he's currently in 4th. Benjamin Miles, who is currently on his somewhat of a farewell tour in the Marvel Studios Cup Series, as this will be his last season, at least for now. He will not be returning in Season 8. But he's been gradually falling in the point standings. He fell to 20th after Twin Ring Motegi this past week. But speaking of Twin Ring Motegi, here comes the winner of that race, Joshua Sekuli. Sekuli, who won last week at Twin Ring Motegi, also that was his second win this season, and he's 13 points out of the points lead, but he's going to have to gain a ton of ground because just a couple of cars back behind him in 9th is the points leader, Jesse Turner. Jesse Turner, even after losing the points lead after, I believe it was Dover, ever since then he's kind of gotten back into the saddle of things, and he's been back up in the points lead, although he's still barely hanging on to that spot because you got a couple of drivers, actually all 3 of the top 3 drivers in the standings are in the top 10, with McIntyre in 2nd, trying to take the lead back. Then you got Joshua Sekuli trying to get a spot, same with Jesse Turner. So all 3 of the top 3 in the point standings is up here in the top 10. And actually the top 4 all is up here too, because even Caleb Kilburn, who's 23 points back, he's up here in the 4th position. So all of the top 4 in points is in the top 10 currently on the racetrack. Back up here at the front, Jay Jefferson trying to hold off Matt McIntyre, but Matt McIntyre's just not giving up easily. But that time, Jay Jefferson managed to get a better lap than Matt McIntyre and actually pulled away from the 14 by a little bit. Meanwhile, we got a battle on for the 4th position. Caleb Kilburn in danger of losing that spot to Cole Baker, but let's see if Caleb can use momentum on the outside in 3 and 4 to keep the spot, or does the bottom lane kick in? Actually, the bottom lane's starting to kick in 3 and 4, so perhaps now it's sort of the opposite of the spectrum. Now, perhaps you want to be on the top side in turns 1 and 2, but be on the bottom in 3 and 4. That or the bottom lane just starting to take over all across the racetrack. As Baker trying to get up to 3rd and trying to complete the pass on Johnny Gardner. It was close at the line. I think, Baker did get the spot at the line. And now Baker not only trying to get to 3rd, actually now trying to take 2nd away from Matt McIntyre. So Cole Baker must have a very good engine in that car, because he's been gradually moving his way up through the field since the start of the race. But he's got a long distance to try and close in on to get to the race leader, Jay Jefferson, who at the line led by a little over 0.8 of a second. But just as I was saying that about Baker, Caleb Kilburn now takes 2nd away from the 18. But I can definitely tell the speeds are starting to get slower as the race goes on because of tire wear. And because I had the pit frequency set to 3x, I have no idea what the fuel window is for this track. Caleb Kilburn now starting to pull away from everyone behind him. Or I don't know, now it seems like the outside lane's starting to kick in again in 3 and 4. I guess it all just depends on how you run those corners. That, or because drivers that are running on the bottom are starting to really slide around a little bit, and also tires being a big factor now. It's causing the drivers on the bottom to lose a little bit of grip, and the guys on the top side are starting to benefit because they're not having to run their tires so much hotter than they would be on the bottom. I don't know, I could be wrong in that, but that's sort of what I'm thinking is what's going on, as the top lane was starting to really kick in that previous lap. But now this lap, the bottom lane got a bigger run than the top, so I don't know, it's like every other lap, something different happens with who's running wheres. Meanwhile, Jay Jefferson so far has led the most laps as we're getting close to the halfway point of this race. And Jay Jefferson now up to little less than 1 1/4 second lead over the 99 of Caleb Kilburn, with Benjamin Miles slowly approaching him. Margin now actually shrunk just a little bit, but not very much. Trying to look around to see if anybody was on pit road yet, and nobody has elected to come to the pits in this race. But if they can make it past lap 25, then it's only a one-stop race, which would be a good thing for a lot of these drivers to not have to worry about making multiple pit stops. But Jay Jefferson trying to go for his 3rd win this season and to get a huge boost in the point standings, as, yes, he is 7th in the standings, but he's a little over a full race behind the points leader, 51 points out of the points lead, so he's definitely looking to get a huge boost in the championship standings, considering we're getting closer and closer to the end of the season. In fact, our next race being the Southern 500 at Darlington, that will be the 2/3 point of the season done. And then after that, it's 12 races left. And just before halfway, Jay Jefferson has to come to pit road. So we're going to have interesting strategies. Some drivers coming in on lap 24, going into lap 25, and then others staying out an extra lap to make sure they make it on a one-stop race. So we could run into a scenario where drivers will have to pit with 2 laps to go. But Caleb Kilburn led that previous lap, and he's going to lead the majority of the rest of the field down pit road, as I'm looking out to see if anybody electing to stay out. Nope. 2 separate groups coming in. Nobody decided to stay out longer than they needed to. Watching Jay Jefferson, and he comes out ahead of the first group of cars. Then Johnny Gardner, Cole Baker, Chris Dollerton, Jonathan Zorlane out of the first group of cars. But now the second group of cars that was led by the 99 of Caleb Kilburn. I'm going to watch the pace car camera to see who comes out ahead of these guys. And it looks like Caleb Kilburn out first, then Jessica Sheldon, Melissa Alexander, Henry Sanford, and, whoa, close, but I think Artur Castanha got out ahead right there. But the lead cycles back to Jay Jefferson as a result. But does he have enough fuel to make it to the end? That's the big question, considering he came and pitted a lap earlier than Caleb Kilburn did, which was lap 24 going into lap 25. So it sounds like Jefferson only has about a 24-lap fuel tank. So he may not have enough to make it. He might have to pit on lap 48 to lap 49. And everybody else that didn't pit with Jefferson and his group would be able to make it, as they pitted on lap 25 going into lap 26. Meanwhile, we got a 3-car battle perhaps going on for the second position. Johnny Gardner has the spot. Then you got Caleb Kilburn and Chris Dollerton all going at it. But Jay Jefferson with a 3-second lead right now, and it continues to grow slightly. So let's actually, now that the pit stops are done, let's do a full field rundown. Jay Jefferson is your race leader. Second right now is Caleb Kilburn. Third, Johnny Gardner. Fourth, Chris Dollerton. Fifth is Jonathan Zorlane. Sixth is DJ Curtis. Seventh, Cole Baker. Eighth, Hannah Klein. 9th, Carson Gum. 10th, Jessica Shelton. 11th, Matt McIntyre. 12th, Cody Lamas. Oh, Jesse Turner had to come back in the pit road. Something happened to him. That's going to really cost him big in the point standings. Oh, man. Tough break for the 17. But as I was saying, so 13th now, Ricky Carmen. 14th, Melissa Alexander. 15th, currently, is Artur Castanha. Yes, indeed, as scoring just updated. 16th, Kyle Matthews. 17th, Seth Cole. 18th, Henry Sanford. 19th, Jordan Forbes. 20th, Joey Parkhill. 21st, Alyssa Drayson. 22nd, Zach Rogers. 23rd, Jake Rogers. 24th, Cole Deaver. 25th, Dylan Young. 26th is Julia Katrine. 27th is Ryan Acosta. 28th, Clint Spillman. 29th, James Shelley. 30th is Michael Norman. 31st is Rob Evans. 32nd, James Qualls. 33rd, Zachary Fitzwater. 34th, Dylan Jacobs. 35th is Charles Sanford. 36th is Rafael Leduc. And then the last car on the lead lap in 37th is Rafael Fireblade. And then you got 3 drivers who are a lap or more down. And it looks like they may have gotten into it on pit road, as I see damage on Benjamin Miles' machine. And then you got Joshua Sekuli and Jesse Turner, who are actually now right around Jay Jefferson, the leader. So this actually is starting to benefit the drivers from second on back, as they're closing in little by little on the 5 of Jay Jefferson. At one point, Jay Jefferson was leading by almost 3.5 seconds, now only leading by 2.25 seconds. Let's see this time by, and actually this time Jay's lead grew a little bit. But yeah, Benjamin Miles, I see visible damage on the driver's side of that car. I almost want to say that perhaps he got into a couple of drivers trying to get in and out of pit road, and there was some miscommunication between Miles and company. But I don't know about Sekuli and Turner in that situation, and Jesse Turner dead last currently, as he's an extra lap down, 5 laps down, whereas Sekuli and Miles are 4 laps down. But either way, those 3 are guaranteed bottom 5 unless something drastic happens. But that will be terrible for Jesse Turner, because he's the points leader, and if he doesn't get any points, he's going to drop quite a bit in the standings. And he's thinking about making a pass on Jay Jefferson to at least get one of those laps back. But Jay Jefferson doing a good job of holding him off. But again, with Jefferson having to race lapped cars, you gotta wonder if that's going to really affect him as far as his fuel run goes. Because remember, he pitted on lap 24 going into lap 25, which tells me he's about 1 or 2 laps short on fuel, whereas everyone else that did not pit with Jefferson and whoever else that did pit with Jefferson, those people are good to go on fuel. Meanwhile, back here, the battle for second still going on, as Chris Dollarton now takes that spot, but Jonathan Zorline, who's actually been starting to get better and better over the past several races, as he's been gradually moving up in the standings, and he's been the one driver out of Curtis McIntyre Racing that has just not had the best season, whereas his teammates of DJ Curtis, Joshua Sekuli, and Matt McIntyre have had great seasons so far. Zorline has not had a great season, but he's been slowly moving up in the standings. In fact, after Twin Ring Motegi, he moved up to 25th in points, and if he can maintain a good run here, he might get back in, he might actually get into the top 20 in points, as they are all going at it back here from second through to the 5th position. DJ Curtis, who's in the 6th spot, is actually trying to reel in those 4 ahead of him to maybe get a few more extra spots. Then it's a big gap all the way back to 7th, being Hannah Klein, who is currently the highest running rookie on the racetrack in the 7th spot. Jonathan Zorling was peeking out of line, was going to maybe dive it into turn 3, but decided not to do that right now. Jesse Turner is actually pulled away from Jay Jefferson, in fact, by over a second, so definitely Jay Jefferson's run is starting to get a little bit halted as he lost a couple of tenths off of his lead the previous lap, as the laps still are winding down, but I'm going to be curious when we get to lap 48 to see what happens if Jay Jefferson can try and stretch his fuel run out a little bit to make sure he wins, or if he's going to have to come to pit road. But so far, we've had a clean and green run this whole race so far. So you could say this race was a success in that regard. Meanwhile, Jay's lead continues to shrink to now just a little over 2 seconds. Chris Dollerton closing in on the 5 little bit by bit every lap, but he's going to have to make up significant time now, because if he only continues to close in by 2 tenths, it's not going to be enough to get to the 5. That time it was only less than a tenth, so I don't know. Dollerton, unless I think he actually pitted with Caleb Kilburn in the second group of cars, so I think he's one of those drivers perhaps in the catbird seat in case Jefferson were to have to come to pit road here in a lap or two, as we're getting close to the end. 4 laps to go here at Boston, and the margin of the lead actually grew a little bit to a little over 2 seconds again, because Jonathan Zorling actually trying to make a pass on Dollerton, which is really creating help for the 5 car. But now here's the money lap, lap 48. We'll see if he doesn't come in the pit road this time, then he might have enough to make it to the end. I don't know, but let's keep an eye on the 5 just in case and see what happens. He's slowing down quite significantly, and I think it's just the tires wearing out. He didn't come in this time, but he's got 2 more laps to get around this track. And actually his lead shrunk to 1.5 seconds almost, as Dollerton still trying to close in. But I just don't think it's going to be enough unless by some miracle, Jefferson just is still getting slower and slower every lap. But he doesn't come into pit road this time, although some drivers are coming in. Oh man, it's going to be close, but the white flag is out and the margin of the lead, 1.2 seconds. Dollerton trying to do all he can to close in on the 5, but I just don't think it's going to be enough. Jefferson out up front, but does he have enough fuel? Or is he going to run out before they get to the line? He's going to try and make it to the end. I think he can coast it from here, and he's got a checkered flag waving. Jay Jefferson gets his 3rd win this season. He wins the New England 400 at Boston. Just barely had enough fuel to make it around the track, and Jay Jefferson ties Zachary Fitzwater and Melissa Alexander for most wins this season at 3. Dominating performance from the 5 of Jay Jefferson, even though it was starting to get a bit nail-bitey at the end as Dollerton was starting to close in, but just didn't have enough time. But nonetheless, congrats to Jay Jefferson. Let's take a look at the rest of the results. Chris Dollerton, as I said, was trying so hard to close in, but just did not have enough time to make it happen. But still, phenomenal points day for him in the 2nd position. Jonathan Zorling's good luck streak continues as he gets a 3rd place run. Maybe our new points leader, or at least close, Caleb Kilburn finishing in 4th. And then Johnny Gardner, who was pretty much top 5 the entire race, gets a 5th place run. DJ Curtis, solid performance in the 6th position. Jessica Sheldon trying to get back on a good run for herself, gets a 7th place finish. Carson Gums, solid run in 8th. Another top 10 for Cole Baker in 9th. And then maybe actually our new points leader, being Matt McIntyre, gets a 10th place run. Here's your top 20, your top 30. And then the bottom 5 for this week were Raphael Fireblade, Zach Rogers, Joshua Sekuli, Benjamin Miles, and Jesse Turner. So the points are going to get shaken up big time now as a result of who came into the race as the points leader being in the bottom 5, as you're watching Jay Jefferson's victory burnout. Thank you guys for watching the New England 400 at Boston. We got another race coming this week, and it's the Southern 500 at Darlington. We return to Darlington, and after that we'll have 12 races left. We're getting closer to the end, people, but until we get to Darlington, this is Levi McIntyre signing off.